Hey, one more thing before you go. What does an 8-year-old who has a spirit child as a playmate do with that unique gift? In what way do you have a normal childhood when you grow up in a family that talks to souls on the other side? How do we have a discussion with someone channeling spirits? We're going to find out all about that when we have a conversation with a man that grew up in that environment. I'm your host, Michael Hurst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go, that thing about spirits and channeling voices from beyond. My guest in this episode is Paul Quinton. He's been involved in the esoteric all of his life, growing up in a family who acknowledged and worked with the unseen world. This has given him the foundation to express his soul's path uninterrupted. The path is to align humans with their souls in the spirit world. Paul's a teacher of transformation and esoteric knowledge. He's a healer, a channel, and a writer. One of his greatest gifts is being able to channel speaking with spirit through his own soul. Through this downloading process, he has learned much of what he teaches, and we had the pleasure of speaking with him today to learn about spirit, alignment, and consciousness transformation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. It's lovely to be on. Thank you for having me.
This is what you do for the world and what you provide, I think, is a very invaluable asset and a fantastic gift that you have.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's been a wonderful journey coming into this. So basically, I sort of grew up in a sort of psychic, spiritual family. So I was very much involved in what is unseen from a very young age, and this has given me the foundation to trust this process and then sort of grow into it as an adult and then finally do it as a job full time. So just coming back to my childhood, so I used to sense and smell spirit from a very young age. I remember my great-grandmother, she was just about to pass and I could smell the death and I didn't know what it was at the time. And it was only years later when I was talking to other family members and they sort of clarified, yes, that's when the spirit or the soul's going to leave the body or the body is going to depart. It brings a smell. So that was sort of my first thing, it was sensing, smelling, and then I would start to see. And I remember when my grandmother passed over, she came to me when we were doing a sitting, because we used to do sittings sort of once a week. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And she came and I saw her, and that's when I started to visually have experiences. And then spirit would always come in and play with me as a child, as in, they'd move things around. I remember I had a little sort of double-decker bus. It's one of the English public buses. And I remember watching a little plasticine man, it had been only the size of my fingernail, running through the bus and sitting down. And obviously at the time, I was experiencing that because, up to the age of 7, you're very much still connected to the unseen or spirit world. This is why children display that sort of spontaneity and sort of living in the moment. They don't have all the conditioning yet of the societal programming and human consciousness coming in. So that was very much sort of my growing up. I'd have those types of experiences. And then when I was probably about 8 or 9, I started to do the sittings once a week with my family. So basically we'd do rescue work where we would help stuck souls from the astral plane, generally astral plane or interdimensional as well. They would come in from different areas. But at the end of the day, some have just been murdered, some were lost, some had some trauma, some were just lonely, stuck on the earth plane. And so we'd educate, talk, and help them move on. So that was my sort of weekly sort of, intake. And then in my teenage years, my mum used to channel an American Indian. His name was Running Feather. She used to speak with a man's voice, so that was always very interesting.
She did that from the UK. Yeah. She was channeling an American Indian.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think as interdimensional beings, we've had many lives in all cultures, really. So generally, these sort of beings that come through are connected some way to your soul family or your non-physical family. But at the end of the day, I'd ask questions, and I used to ask about UFOs and aliens and life on other planets. I was very interested in. That's one of my main topics as a child. Still is, really, actually. So that was sort of growing up in that sort of field that gave me the experience. And then I moved into my sort of teenage years, early 20s, and I went in the military. I was in the military for 6 years. Then I was traveling. I worked on cruise ships. So I traveled around the world doing that. And then I came back to England because I'm actually English born, and I moved out to Australia when I was 13. And I stayed there till 28. And then traveling for a couple of years, came back to England, and then sort of set up my own business here. And that sort of as a teacher and healer was my main work to start with. And I've just started writing books and channeling directly only in the last sort of 5 years. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, it's amazing to get thrown into that environment at such a young age and still understand it because, at least in my experience and the things that I've learned in talking to other mediums and channels and psychics that have said, in which we know, you grew up in an environment where you're that age, and when you have imaginary, quote, I can't quote because of my fingers, but, quote, unquote, imaginary friends, it turns out to be that they could be spirit that are playing with the children or with yourself. And the parents close that off. They usually shut it down. It's like, no, that's, stop talking to your imaginary friends. Stop, you don't have any imaginary friends. And they kind of shut that down. You were lucky that you had a family that actually nurtured that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was very normal, for us. And spirit being in the house, even my mum and her brothers, my uncles, they would have, growing up as well, they'd have a lot of activity, spirit in the house, moving the things around. They used to tickle my mum's foot all the time when she was in bed. They'd have those types of experiences. And my grandparents, my mum could sort of astral project, so she could go and like remote view and different things. And my grandparents used to talk telepathically during the Second World War because my grandfather was a Royal Marine. So they never really send letters. They would just talk telepathically and communicate. I remember my nan used to be able to move clouds, like the American Indians do as well. So she'd look and say, right, I'm going to move that cloud. We'll get the sun in the garden. And I'd literally see them depart. So they had some great skills.
Yeah, that's amazing to grow up in an environment like that. What a childhood.
Yeah.
It
was special. Don't get me wrong. Also, there was a lot of fear at the time because I had to go through that human aspect, because as human beings, we fear the unknown. Yeah. And there was a lot of, because I was quite sensory as well, I could pick up a lot of feelings of people. So in some ways, I was quite on my own in some ways because I didn't really express that. And I was very much an internal introvert in some ways, although I'm an extrovert in many other ways. I'm sort of that sort of oscillation. But really, going through the fear, that's what really came out. But I realized that was my past life, as you would call it, past life fear to process, and also understand that coming into this to alignment with that that shadow energy, there is really nothing to fear in fear itself. It's the belief systems around fear. And so so it wasn't all, I had my my scary moments as well. But then again, that solidifies your power, your inner power, and awareness of what is unseen. And then it sort of gives you the ability to then work with that shadow energy sometimes, because it does come up, obviously, when you're doing healing and seances and other things, and not to fear it, basically.
Now, do you, growing up that way and obviously becoming more comfortable with spirit or the energy on the other side from that perspective, you have a clear understanding of that there is life on the other side, so to speak?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. I've had many sort of out of body. Well, I've had a lot of out of body experiences. I've sat in a room with spirit before. I've seen, shall we say, non-humans, what we call ETs. So I've seen quite a few of them in different ways. I've seen them in my dreams. I've seen them physically. I've seen them appear through the walls. So I've had a lot of those types of esoteric experiences. And I've also seen, very hard to explain in words, where my consciousness was just taken over by my soul, and it was like a window open, or what you call like a portal, and I could see aspects of my multidimensional threads of my own consciousness. Because obviously we are a multidimensional being. We're not just existing here. The physical is really just a hologram of what is non-physical. And so you can have, and this is what this work is that we're bringing, is about accessing all of those parts of yourself in the one moment. So you can have a full awakening, or be fully conscious of who you are as a multidimensional being. So I've had many of those experiences, and that's really just sort of solidified and given me the ability to talk about this and know that it's real. Because we have to be authentic of our own experience, and Spirit have been very clear to me that teachers out there now that are sort of teaching from textbooks, or they haven't had the experiences, they're only going to go so far, because you have to be a mirror. You have to have empathized with the person or the people you're working with, and you also had to integrate what you're teaching. So you have to go through it all yourself. Otherwise, how can you come from an authentic place? And like I said, and understanding what people are going through, because we're in a turbulent time of chaos at the moment. Yes, it's amazing, and there's a beautiful frequency underneath all this chaos on the planet at the moment. But people are fearful, people are scared, they're in separation and despair, and they don't know, they haven't got the right answers. And so you have to have a sense of what that feels like from your own experience, because also then your cellular information has that frequency of information that aligns with their cellular information. And that is actually how the healing's done. The spoken word is really the last part of it. Most of it's happening before we even talk. When people come to healings for me, or even on the workshop, sometimes they're activated a month before they even come on, because things start triggering, because, everything's working faster in the non-physical. And really what we do, this type of work that Spirit have given us now, in the old days, in the ancient ways, in the temple days, when we were more in our light bodies, through our ancient cultures, we would just turn up to the temple. The activation would just happen. There wouldn't be a spoken word or some sort of process, because the intention is the foundation of all outcomes in all universes. So if you have an intention to create something, that is what creates the algorithm of the 1 and 0, which is the masculine and feminine coming into alignment, or divine masculine, divine feminine. So that frequency, or that algorithm, is created through the intention. So when we are in alignment and we're out of the separation that we are in at the moment in this physical experience on this current timeline, and what we're moving now into, is to become fully conscious and be able to manifest in the moment. And this is what we're moving back into now. And this is what I was talking about. This is what's really exciting. And this is what we're really trying to wake people up to, and allow that sort of process, what they already know inside of them, to awaken naturally. And we don't say that, you have to go out and learn all this information, the striving, struggling, stressing, that male energy, you have to work hard, blah, blah, blah. Actually, now the feminine energy is coming back on the planet, and this is about surrender. And when you surrender to that frequency, which is your own soul, everything is provided for you. And we are exhausted as a human race because we've been stressing, striving, using that masculine energy, that will. But if you have the gentleness of the feminine, which is actually very, very powerful, the divine feminine, because everything manifests from that, and that's what we call, the black hole, or the dark or black ray. So we're starting to get that consciousness is already coming onto the planet. In some ways, it's already grounded here. And so what we're doing now is trying to get people to awaken to what's already within them, and saying, no, you don't need to go out and do all this work. You just need to be still. You need to understand what emotional energy is. You need to understand what this ancestral lineage is and how it affects you in this present moment. And through a few simple techniques and ways we work, we start to unravel all of that sort of misinformation, misalignment, confusion within people's psyches and within their consciousness. And this comes down to the cells at the end of the day. So it's a beautiful experience that we're going through now. And yeah, it's wonderful, and it's very humbling to be able to come onto podcasts like this and talk with you, Michael, and just be in this space, and just have that frequency of authenticity, because you feel it and you know it, and it's when you're grounded in that truth that really affects other people's consciousness, and that is how we move the light around the planet. So it's a very humbling experience, and I'm very, very happy to be here.
But you brought up a couple of things I was thinking about while you were talking. Is that how yin and yang fit together, the positive, the negative? Is that different than the femininity and the masculinity, or is it kind of all intertwined from that perspective? I'm familiar with yin and yang. I'm familiar with positive and negative. From that perspective, is that how that all kind of plays? How about chi? How does chi, the energy of the universe, does that intertwine with all that?
Yeah, so, just so basically what Spirit have taught me, and I actually don't teach anything I've read in books anymore, just what I've channeled now and what they're teaching me, because a lot of things are becoming redundant in how we talk about it. So basically what they've said is there's 13 densities of consciousness. Human beings work within 9 realms, so we work with the 9 chakra system now, not the 7. And basically the 13th density is the divine feminine. It is the unmanifest. It's the black hole, the black ray. Everything comes from there. Everything in creation comes through that. Now, the 12th density is the masculine, divine masculine. Now, that divine feminine will create a consciousness, or divine feminine, if you want, as a singularity. However, it's the same energy. So the divine masculine and divine feminine will fuse or come together like a human, male and female, to create spirit. And that's what happens around the 12th density. So the yin and yang is a fusion of consciousness. However, we only split duality from the 9th density down. So once you evolve back into the 10th density, or you're all awakened back to the 10th, you lose that sort of duality. So the negative and positive, you have to. So basically, what I was told is when Creator decided, all the creator forces of the masculine and feminine, when they decided to go out and experience the multiverse, they create universes, they create spirit, they create souls. And in order for separation to be a reality, you have to have a shadow energy. The intricacy of all that, I don't know, beyond, it's too much to understand it all. But I do know that the shadow is here to teach us and show us that which we are not. So you cannot have this experience of losing consciousness without the shadow. Now, shadow beings they couldn't exist if we didn't exist. So basically, it's our own energy, because we're all from the one being, I want to call it. So we are light, we are dark, and we've been through many lives. We've been the perpetrators, and we've been the savers, or what we call creator gods, or destructor gods, as Spirit call it. So we are now in a time of coming back into creator god energy, which means the patriarchal system, which we're seeing is losing its consciousness around the planet now. The feminine's now coming in to balance that energy, to bring the gentleness, the humility, the vastness, and the intuition. And even when I work with men, I work with some high up corporate people and very empowered people in the physical, but when you go into their consciousness, they're a scared little boy 9 times out of 10, because the patriarchal system is suppressed. And also men's hearts have been shut down to make them pawns for war. So the masculine's going through a huge upheaval now. And I know the masculine energy on the planet is looked at as some sort of negative or derogative and misogynistic. And yes, of course, that's that aspect. But that was all part of the cycle of what we've gone through to lose ourselves and now find ourselves. So what this actually does is it brings us back to no judgment, because criticism and judgment is the energy on the planet that really crucifies our consciousness. So which again, trying to get out of that judgment. And once you understand why things are happening, you can't have judgment, because you realize everything's a mirror of your own consciousness.
It's interesting, because that's something my wife has been talking about actually over the last several days, because we've watched so much chaos in life in general, with the war going on in Ukraine, and then all of the political upheaval going on all over the world, not just the United States, but everywhere. And the changes and the the what feels like a negative upheaval coming about, and how people are losing their compassion and their humanity and their empathy for other human beings. It just blows me away that that's taking place. But then again, you look on the other side of it, and you see compassion, humanity, and understanding, trying to like overcome that. At the same time, you can literally, if you really listen and open your eyes, you can see it and you can hear it from both sides.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it's, well, the whole coronavirus, for example, I mean, from a spiritual perspective, a virus, well, look, I don't want to get into all the stuff, but look, I'll just talk from a spiritual perspective, because when an emotion in the human collective consciousness gets to a point where it becomes too much and it needs to release itself, it will create a virus. So actually, grief is the foundation of the coronavirus. So don't forget, light and dark are the same energy. They're always working in union. And this is what people don't understand. We believe they're these primordial concepts of separation doesn't really exist. This was the church that did all this thousands of years ago, however, to create separation so we could have this experience. So coming back to a virus, so grief, what it does, or any emotion, could be anger, could be fear, it will mutate itself to create a virus, and then that virus is then there to trigger the emotion back in the person. So the grief is basically when we fell from our higher selves. And the last time we did that was probably Atlantis, which is about 13,000 years ago. Now, that's a very recent civilization compared to how long we've been here, millions and millions of years, and living in and out of this spirit consciousness. So the coronavirus was there to, from a spiritual perspective, to trigger the grief in humanity. Now, grief sits in the lungs. That's why it attacks the lungs. I channeled the virus, and there's actually nothing. It was never a negative virus, because from non-physical reality, everything's always in loving service to us, even if you're in the shadow, even if it's negative. And also, the virus was there to break the 9-to-5 slave model, as we call it. It was to give people time to come back to themselves, a chance to go within, have more time to be at home, work with their families, get their health back together, relax, let some of the stress go, because like I said, we are exhausted. Humanity is exhausted. We just believe it's normal, but it's not. And this is why the planet is also in such a mess, and why we've become so separate, because, when we're in separation and when we're exhausted, we're in survival mode. And most people are just above the breadline, even if it's just financial, but emotionally, mentally. And it's just, we are in a survival. And when you're in that space, it's very, very hard for you to find space to work on yourself. And this was very alarming for the non-physical, because they actually said to me about 2 years ago, we are now moving backwards. So it's a shame, because really, and I was talking to this on my group the other day about what's really evolved. We're still killing ourselves. We're still perpetrating. It's just technology. Human beings are still in their infancy of becoming conscious again. But however, there is a lot of support now, and there's a lot of energy coming on the planet. And this chaos that you're talking about, with all the war and stuff, you have to have chaos to bring realignment. And again, if you can plug in through the fear factor of it, through the mainstream media, which just triggers a lot of people, and actually feel with your own feelings, you can actually feel a different frequency. And it's very interesting, because we are in this crossroads at the moment, and there's a lot of unwritten things, and even consciousness not perfect, and even the non-physical that are working with us now can't really see exactly what's going on, because this is a fundamental experiment, and there's this huge non-physical alignment coming into place as well. And it's not just us evolving. The planet is evolving, but also the solar system is transforming itself as well. So it's affecting all the other planets in our solar system. So again, this stuff's not taught at school. It's quite intricate. There's a lot to it. But the good thing is that they've been very, very clear that certain agendas on the planet will not be allowed to play out. So we will take back our sovereignty of our bodies, of our planet, and this planet will shine again as it used to in the ancient days. So yeah, it's yeah. But to be honest, the only way we can actually feel that truth is to work on our own emotions.
Right.
Once those emotions are clear, because like I say to people, if you're watching the news and you get angry or you get fearful, then that's a great chance for you to heal yourself, because it's not the news that's triggered you. Well, it is the news, but it's not what you've just heard. It's not the story. That anger is your own anger. So that's your opportunity to heal that anger or your fear, whatever it triggered in you. And this is where we come back to the mirror universe. You know, everything's in loving service to us and nothing can go against our will. So, yeah, I think, I could talk for ages.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's extremely interesting. And it all fits together. It really does. I've talked about this before in some of the other episodes, and my wife and I have talked about it as well in regard to, my wife got COVID. She was in bed for 96 hours. It was terrible. She really could hardly breathe, and it was just a very, very long 96 hours. I got it. It barely touched me. I really had very mild symptoms and so forth compared to my wife and others. I was able to function and continue to move forward in life, and it may or may not be because of the fact that I was at a different conscious level, possibly, and that's the reason it didn't. But the one thing that we did agree on, you brought this up in your conversation there. What happened with COVID also gave us an opportunity to say maybe what we were doing wasn't the normal. And maybe my wife stayed home to work for a year and a half. And instead of driving an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes in traffic and worried about whether or not you're going to get hit or get into an accident or get there safely and get angry at the people cutting you off, we went out on the back patio in the mornings and we had a cup of tea and we listened to the birds and we watched the wind blow the leaves and watched the flowers and the hummingbirds. And she, we got done with that. She got up, walked into the office and went to work. And when she got done, there wasn't an hour and 15-minute drive home. We went back out to the patio. We enjoyed the afternoon. We watched the sunset. It was much more relaxing, much nicer. How do we know that's not normal? That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it felt to us. This is what it's supposed to be, not the 3-hour commute, not the sitting in a cubicle listening to everybody else complain and gripe and, everything that's going on within their lives. Not being insensitive, but, when you sit there and listen to that all day long and you hear arguments and you hear phone calls and you hear this kind of negativity all day long, and then you got to come home and think about it on the hour and 20-minute drive home. And
absolutely.
I think you're right. I think you're reset. Allowed us to do that. Real quick, if you don't mind, I'd like to touch on something real quick here. We talk about, you have mentioned several times a multidimensional. So we all have a soul, correct? Yes. Is that soul multidimensional, or is that soul one soul connected to other dimensions?
Yeah. So basically, so when we're created by the male and female, masculine, divine male and female, it will create a spirit. The spirit will then create souls. Those souls will then create physical extensions. So it's a hierarchy system. So the soul is the accumulation of feelings and experiences. It's a consciousness of everything that you've gone through. So basically, the soul is you're experiencing physicality. You're passing that up to the soul. And then the soul is then passing that information up to the spirit. So the soul is interdimensional. So interdimensional is all of your Earth timeline lifetimes, and multidimensional is you as a multidimensional being. So you could be in non-physical on other planets and other universes. So
From
again,
that
it's
perspective.
because don't forget the physical is the illusion, right? So we are non-physical beings having a physical experience.
So it's still all connected. It's intertwined and connected then.
Absolutely. We're always communicating in that present moment, and when we become more awake, we'll be able to talk to all aspects of our own consciousness. Absolutely.
Now, do you feel that, I believe in reincarnation. I believe in that, from my perspective, I believe in reincarnation. I think that we come back and we learn things in one life and we come back and experience and kind of use that experience and those learning experiences to kind of move into our next life, whatever it happens to be. Do you think that the soul carries on that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Eternal beings, for sure. Absolutely. Again, spirit confirmed that. What happens is, wherever, so when we leave this life, whatever we haven't resolved, part of that soul contract, you basically, when you come back into a body, you take off exactly from where you left off. The story's different, but the energy and the system and the lessons are still the same. So you can never escape it.
I see.
So, we always have to be conscious of that. And you cannot get off the planet if you still have karma with someone else, as in something's unresolved. Because there's many beings on the planet that should not be on this planet, physical, and they can't get off. Their souls can't get them off because they have to keep incarnating under universal law to resolve these issues with these other people. So you don't meet anyone new in this life. So even you and I have had a life together. Otherwise, we wouldn't have connected again. So we've had thousands of lives. So it's. And of course, the soul is a pioneer. So we are still going out exploring. So when this universe is finished, there'll be another. We'll go into another universe, or another one will be created. So it's constantly growing, learning, developing itself. Because even the creator has a creator.
Yeah.
So where do we go here?
How does that play into, like earlier when you were talking about having other spirit children that you were playing with as a child? How does that play into other spirits that are here? Like you watch these paranormal shows where they investigate hauntings and they investigate and they have communication with them, and they've been able to get solidified evidence, whether it be through camera, through video, and or through EVPs and things like that. How does all that connect with that?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the connect with what, sorry?
Like for example, I know that you said that, pardon me, my allergies.
That's
the
okay.
soul, you said that sometimes we have unfinished business and we kind of keep coming back. So if there are spirit here that are still here, for example, like the ones that you played with when you were a child, and those that we watch these ghost hunting shows and I've spoken to some paranormal investigators who have had conversations with spirit from the other side. You have had conversation with spirit from the other side. How does that soul connection / reincarnation play into that? Are they here because they have unfinished business?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. I thought that's what you meant, but I just wanted to clarify. Yes, absolutely. So basically what will happen, depending on how much they've evolved themselves, most of humanity sit around the astral plane, and there's not just one place. There's lower astral, higher astral, depending on what they've done and who they've magnetized around. A lot of the shadow beings will stay in the lower, shall we say, darker realms that are less light, less conscious. So what there's more, shall we say, non-physical human beings around the planet than there is on the planet, as far as I know. So you're constantly, I've walked past people before and you can hear all the spirits around them start talking and you're going like, what are they talking about? You think they're talking to you, but they're not. So they're everywhere. Every time you go down the shops, you're walking past at least 10 non-physical people, minimum, because they're still here looking, waiting to reincarnate. So the soul will generally come between lives and say, right, we need to do this now. You need to do that. And I believe that a lot of spirit that don't want to move on will stay here, and there's a lot of stuck spirit. There's some that are, certain people still see Roman soldiers walking through castles here. They haven't moved on, and they're thousands of years ago. So, and of course, time doesn't really exist, does it? So for them, it could be a million years, it could be 5 minutes. It doesn't really matter. But so basically, yeah. So the ones that we're talking to, the ones that they're talking to, are either here because they're waiting to reincarnate. They haven't been able to move on, or they're waiting for, or they're here to assist the rest of their family before they move on. So yeah, this is why a lot of when people pass, they go to spiritualist church, the grandparent will come in and say, yeah, I'm helping you with this and guiding you and supporting you. Yeah, that's what we do. So it doesn't stop once we pass over. We're still a family. We're still there to support each other.
Ironically enough, that was my next question. See, they're talking to us now, right?
Exactly.
As long as they leave me alone when I use the bathroom, then I'm good.
Exactly.
It's like, have to have some privacy, right?
Well, yeah, I think they have their discernment.
Not
all of them, though. Not all of them. I remember my mother. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I remember my mother. She had a guy come to him, and he was very psychic, very open. He could see things, and he got very upset because, and I'll explain why this happened as well, so that people get worried about it. Mm-hmm. And there were two guys that would always sit in the bedroom watching them, and they'd always watch his wife undress, and he could see them like we're looking at each other now, and that obviously is too intrusive. And he became very unsettled by that, and you can understand the emotions that followed that. But at the end of the day, they had magnetic patterns in them that allowed that to happen. So nothing go against your will. So what you would then evolve into, you'd say, well, you're seeing this, they're there. So what has she not resolved in herself? Why is she allowing that to happen? Or why are you allowing that to happen? And it's not so much allowing it, it's about understanding that maybe you have, you have a past life connection with them, you haven't resolved something. Maybe you have a pattern of abandonment or abuse that needs to clear. Right. And then so you would then go, okay, I need to get inquisitive now. And then I need to see, why is this happening? And then I go, okay, so this is why I haven't resolved this from this life. So then you go in and resolve that. And then what happens is your frequency changes. Then that frequency blocks those types of energies because you've raised your consciousness, you see? So when your consciousness is raised, you come out of that lower frequency. So those types of beings that are doing that will not be able to affect you. So yeah. And of course, then maybe he wasn't connected to his guides. Maybe he needed to do some work there as well to protect his house. So yeah, there's many things, but at the end of the day, people will look at you. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. We just can't see them because if we did, it'd be too intrusive anyway. It would freak people out all the time.
Yeah, I would think so.
Be able to get on with life. Yeah,
well, I'm sure people, I mean, well, you obviously experience it because you've seen spirit. I'm sure that it gets a little unnerving at times, especially growing up with it. It can be something that we are not ingrained with where we kind of go, oh, that's normal, kind of a thing. It's no big deal. We as human beings, our human nature is kind of like, did I really see that? And why am I seeing that? And are they going to hurt me or what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
One of those things.
I know. I've been with people that have opened up with me before, and because their consciousness is not ready for it, they've actually denied the experience a week later and said, "No, it never happened."
Wow.
So because it's too much. We're too until we have to come to a certain level before we see the truth. Because if we were to open to the truth, it would be too blinding. We'd probably just disintegrate. It'd just be too emotionally overwhelming. Right. And this is what happens. So we have to do things slowly. Integrate, and this is what's happening now on the planet, is that consciousness is moving because we're so disconnected from truth and reality. There has to be very, very subtle, and there's a lot of plans on how they were going to release information on the planet, how they were going to do it. What I'm realizing is that a lot of these disclosures a lot of people are talking about, it's really not going to happen in the way they've been saying. And Spirit have been talking since the 50s that they're going to bring on this, all of, things are going to appear and blah, blah, blah. But I just don't think it would debunk too much of our model. Like, for example, religion and things like that would go into disarray, and all the rest of it, and the fact that why the government lied about non-physical entities and extraterrestrials and life on other planets, and so this would create a lot of fear, a lot of panic. So things have to be done very subtly now, and this is why spirit are getting people to work on their emotions first, because once those emotional magnets are clear, you can awaken to those sort of that information and not let it debilitate you or create fear or worry you. Because really, in truth, there is nothing to fear or worry about. It's our programming that creates that fear. So, yeah.
Well, and I wholeheartedly, my wife and my family, actually, we believe it. I grew up Catholic, but I am not a practicing Catholic. Yeah. And this is my own opinion. I do not believe in organized religion. I think that there's some flaws in that system in regard to how it's presented to people and how it controls or manipulates individuals. That's my opinion. I do believe in the universe, and I do believe that we're all connected collectively, and that we have guides. I believe in guides and angels, and I rely on them consistently. I think that they have helped guide me in certain directions in my life, and wholeheartedly believe in reaching out to the universe. When you had mentioned earlier about listening to our guides, or who are there, or whether or not we're listening to somebody, I think that we should all take an opportunity to kind of take a pause and realize that we do have help. I mean, would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, for me, I've got more security with the non-physical than I do with human beings, because we're fickle, we're still going for our stuff. Them I can trust, because I know that their frequency is in alignment with evolving the planet and helping humanity. And also a guide, and which what most people don't realize is a guide is a thread of your own consciousness. So a guide that is in a different state of frequency, that is more awakened, will come to assist an aspect of itself that needs assisting. So when you're talking to your guides, they might come in as Jack and Jill, but Jack and Jill is actually you in another frequency.
Life. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting, actually. Yeah. Do you think do we? And I've heard this before in other discussions. Do you think our soul sets out a path for ourselves each time that we come back, and that that we can, like, we choose that path, we choose that that being, I guess, or this time on Earth?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we call it, soul contract. So in between lives, a soul will come, will say, right, we need to do this, we need to organize that. A soul contract, because it's a pioneer, it's there to help us evolve and grow and learn. The soul contract is very much integrated. And what happens is, you will talk. Souls will talk to other souls that you're having a physical incarnation with. So they're always in a talking to each other and go, well, what's the best way of getting this done now? And so the soul is always there with you, and it's the feminine. Now, the free will, this is funny, the free will is like many roads, they all lead to Rome, right? So the free will is how you go about that soul contract. So in truth, do we have free will? Yes and no. In the sense that we are free to explore here, but the soul is the governing body of this physical incarnation. But it's also the feminine. So it is a nurturer, it's a carer, and it's a protector. So once you come into alignment with the soul energy, and it's what we call becoming vertical. So most people are plugged into the horizontal line, which we call horizontal. So this is like societal programming, right? We should be married by 25, have 2 children by 28. You need to have the mortgage paid off by 45, whatever it is. And when we don't fulfill that, we become very disillusioned. We get fearful, we get angry, we get upset. So this plugged into this timeline is actually what kills us quickly. And the expectation. And this is why people don't fulfill their dreams as well. It's because they have a lot of, they don't realize that their dream is really the soul contract, if it's in alignment with that soul contract. And coming to and surrendering to the soul energy actually manifests the dream in front of them without having to put all that stress and strain. Because how many times do we go down false roads and put all this effort and time into things and they don't pay off, is because you're trying to do it from the human perspective without the integration of the soul perspective. And this is what's happening with most human beings. And this is also why, and they did a study, like a lot of people that win the lottery, they lose all the money. It's because of the belief systems around money's evil. I don't deserve. I need to suffer. And this is all the program that we've received, you know. And when you come in, you just spoke about religion as well. You know, the main thing, the problem with religion is that we are taught to something outside of ourselves will protect us and save us. And it's the God programming in all of us that is causing a lot of problems, because in truth, nothing can save you except yourself. We are God, we are creator. And that's about coming back into alignment with that truth as well. And of course, a lot of the imagination is our greatest gift, and it was shut down. This is why Einstein said, you know, if I wasn't inquisitive of why does that star shine, and then use my imagination to get the answer, I would never have got it. I would never have got it through logical thinking. So the cross actually means conflict. So every time you see the cross or wear the cross, it means that you're putting yourself into conflict. And this comes from spirit. But if you put a circle around the cross, which is the feminine, it means the balance of the four bodies. So the images have been used against us to put a lot of fear in us as well. And so, you know, like you said, organized religion. Religion's okay, and it's fantastic. I believe it was seeded with the right intention, but of course, everything gets corrupted over time, and it's used to you know, for certain people that want to have power and all the rest of it. We know all the stories, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, religion is a way to delve deep into ourselves. But the problem was, it was split at some stage, and then it was made as an outward projection, but more of an internal projection. But the principles of religion, you know, like I've got family, some of my family that are non-spiritual, they're quite religious. So I have a sort of, you know, on one side. But when they go to their church, the community is fantastic. You know, they're looking after each other, they help each other when people are sick, they're there for each other, they help each other move. You know, that community. And of course, you know, the principles of, you know, do not steal, do not attack, and all the rest of it are there. However, it's the fear around it. And that's what we need to remove now, that, you know, there is nothing to fear in the shadow. And of course, if something happens to you, then you have created it at the soul level. So we actually get away from the word of karma now. They don't like to use karma. What it is actually magnetic. And again, Einstein was talking about that. He understood the magnetics of the planet, that everything created here has a magnetic energy. So if you're believing something, you're going to draw that in. And it's the same as everything is a mirror. So if you are constantly, all right, I'll give an example. So if you're constantly being abandoned in a relationship, you get to the point, you go through 3 or 4 relationships and you go, oh, well, that's just life, you know, and you expect that to happen in the next relationship. Oh, I'm going to be abandoned, blah, 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 blah. Of course you are, because it's not the person. The person that's abandoning you is holding a mirror for you. And the soul is saying, you have the abandonment issue. You need to clear that abandonment issue. And then you will not get abandonment in your relationships. It's impossible, because if you're not putting out that frequency, magnetically, you cannot draw the same issue. So it brings us back to everything is created from within us first. So, you know, whatever's going on in your life is a projection of your internal life. And this gives us a lot of power. It gives people the power to come back and take control of their lives, that they're not at the whim of some outside entity, or, you know, the belief of that's just life. Because it's not true. And this is, so karma really is your soul awakening you, trying to awaken you. And it's going to keep repeating that karmic pattern until you wake up and go, oh, hang on, I'm the one with the issue of abandonment, not the people that keep doing it to me. And that's very empowering when you come into alignment with that truth, because then it gives you back the awareness to then go, okay, so I can actually heal myself. I don't need to go out and find, you know, and strive and struggle to fix this. And I definitely don't need to surrender to it being a reality any longer. And you talk to most people, and I've been doing this job now, like I said, grew up with it, but as a full-time therapist, 22 years. And I tell you what, every time, and it's the same old story, humanity is stuck in those belief systems. And it's, you know, and even people that are very sort of spiritual and awakened, and you get a lot of people like mediums and other people that are working in the field, they haven't evolved their emotional body. And if you have to transform that Otherwise, it's very, very hard. So you'll get so far, and then you're going to get hit with all of these realities later. And it's very, very important that we come into alignment as a holistic being, exactly why we're here and what we are here to transform. And this is really important. And this is why this new age frequency that we're working with, and what spirit trying to bring on the planet now, is to awaken human beings to their truth, to acknowledgement of the truth, which is very, very simple. It's human beings that convolute everything. My favorite saying is, stop thinking, get out of your own way, because human thinking causes all the problems. It's quite true if you look at it as a reality.
100%. 100%. Do you think that can relate to things like our health, or our mental health, or financial, issues, or things like that? Can life's obstacles, basically, what you just said, that all can be managed that same way through what you just said?
Absolutely, because there's no such, when you project that there's all this scarcity, it's impossible to have scarcity, unlimited wealth, because the universe is limitless. It's unlimited, And when we're in that power of manifestation, the soul knows that it doesn't want you to strive and struggle, because when you're striving and struggling, you're not connecting into what is unseen. You're just trying to survive physically. Right. So yes, absolutely. Look, a disease and illness always has an emotional host or a mental host. It's impossible for the human body to break down without an emotional host to an illness or disease. The human body is perfect. It's a brilliant biological computer. We let it down with our belief systems and our emotions. So when you transform those emotions, by universal law, your physical body has to then manifest that same health, because, like I said, it's us that lets it down. So of course, when you come into the soul alignment, even if you don't have a lot of money, and that's not what the soul is all about, it doesn't want to give you this wealth, but it wants to teach you compassion or empathy for this life. You will come into a much peaceful state of your reality. And yes, things can start opening up. Right. And generally what will happen is the soul will just start putting work in front of you very, very quickly. It will change your career. And I've seen people, especially once we're doing the workshops, 4 people on the first workshop changed their career within a week. And they started manifesting, doing it. And they come back, because we always do a follow-up, and they say, I cannot believe what's just happened. I've just sat back and watched my life change, and I wasn't even in control of it. And this is the thing about being in alignment with what is unseen. It just moves into your space and it just creates. And you're like, oh my God, I can't even believe that just happened. And it's so empowering. And we're all deeply scared and lonely down underneath, humans. When you have that reality or that experience, you go, I'm not alone. And you feel it in the bones. Right. And it's not who's around you. You feel it internally. And there's no other stronger feeling of safety and security than that inner feeling. Because a lot of people surround themselves with all these friends and different people and outgoing things, but really deep down, they're doing that so they don't need to feel the loneliness. And this is the problem as well. We project outwardly to create that, but it's an internal reality. So yes, you can have that. Absolutely. It's impossible not to. Again, we're coming back to universal laws.
Well, and some of what you just said, kind of, I relate to, like the conversation that we had prior to us starting this interview. With regard to my choice that I opened myself up to walk my daughter down the aisle and walk out of a wheelchair and not be pushed down the aisle. No disrespect to anybody in a wheelchair, because I spent almost 4 years in one. But yes, I had to get a deeper understanding and a deeper look at myself and climb out of my own mind, get out of my own way, and not listen to the 5 doctors that said I would be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and do that, and to accomplish that. So I from a personal perspective, I attest to that. Working.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was your intervention at the soul level, is to break the state. And as you were saying to me before, you got quite angry because you loved your job as a police officer and you were helping people. So it wasn't just losing the job, it was losing that avenue of helping people. So it can be, and this is what a lot of people don't, when they lose their job or check their career, they don't realize they've created it at the soul level. They get angry, they get annoyed, they get fearful. But actually, if you come into alignment and just allow what's happened, because it's out of your hands, then you can step back, and that's where you get inquisitive. Okay, why did this happen? And then you naturally open to that, and you're where you are. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. So it's really it's about coming to alignment with, things are here, and you're not really in control of it. And you have to listen to the internal, the voice, because it's there to assist you. And yeah, I think it was great, and having that willpower, and you just need something to focus on, and it brings you into alignment. Like you said, your daughter said, "I want to walk you down the aisle," and that gave you the impetus to break through it. And that's yeah.
Well,
you need
and I
something
think
to believe it.
we all have that opportunity to ground our consciousness, basically.
Absolutely.
Correct, as you say.
Yeah.
Within humanity, and transform our consciousness into a positive perspective from our life path, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me. You were able to create an environment for you to help people, to train people, to teach people, to connect with people in regard to helping this transformation come through. What made you come to that juncture in your lifetime? And let's talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so basically, obviously, I always knew I was going to work at some level with spirit, because of my growing up. I've always had the will to bring something through that was authentic, that was not touched by sort of the new age movement, because a lot of, again, misinformation in there. Bring something that was direct from spirit, that was clear, precise, and tangible. And like we said, make it easy for the man on the street that's not so much aware of this esoteric side, but wants an understanding of why they're on the planet and why they feel certain ways. So it's why I put this together is because it's such an internal drive. Spirit has stepped in many times and said, right, we're doing this. So I'm very much in alignment with going with the flow, shall we say. I don't make too many decisions or, right, this is where I want to be. I'm very much now in the present moment, and stuff will just come through and okay, that's what we're doing now. This is the next part of it. But my will to help humanity is because obviously at the soul level, I agreed to come in and as a life of service. So when you get to, you've gone through enough lives, you will get that opportunity to be of service. And we will all human beings at some stage through this path that they're on of separation will come into unity, and then realize that the next stage of that unity is to assist others that are still stuck. And this is the general rule of how the universal consciousness works. We are always there in assistance. So spirit that are helping us now on the planet have been through this. A lot of them have been through it. Not all of them have incarnated, because a lot of beings don't like to incarnate because they lose consciousness. But they have the understanding, they have the knowledge, and they hold the space for this planet to evolve and grow as well as humanity. So I'm very much in alignment with that sort of spiritual collective frequency. Now, what will happen is non-physical beings will come together with the same intention. They will merge their consciousness. They will create a new consciousness that then becomes a forefront of or reality, or a spokesperson or an energy that will assist aspects of evolving cultures on planets and universes. So for me, on a personal level, it's just an internal feeling. It's what spirit gave me. And the joy in teaching is so profound that I'm very humbled to do it. So that's my reward, is having that feeling of assisting others. And when you see someone come out of their suffering, there's no greater reward. So that's what drives me. That's what keeps me going. And yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm very, very humbled to do this work.
And your business and your website is Alignment Modality. And how can they find it?
Yeah, so www.alignmentmodality.com. Just Google that. All my one-on-one working, I do packages as well. And of course, if you look under courses, it talks about the alignment modality. And it's a 4-part transformation modality that you will come into a consciousness, into a group consciousness. So you'll join the group that are already going through it. Everyone, it's a community. We create a community, and it's spread out because it has to be taught this way, and you have to have integration time before we move on to the next module. Because as we go deeper and deeper, we start to get into the deeper stuff, and we go into the shadow stuff. And so there has to be a healthy foundation. But this modality is not just some course or workshop. This is about a transformation of the soul body, of the human aspect of your consciousness. So there has to be an integration, a journey, and it has to become a way of life. And the Spirit said to me, this is a realm that already exists around us, and we're moving our consciousness into that realm. So this is basically a bridge to awaken to what is non-physical. But the esoteric information, the teaching is amazing, and there's still stuff coming through. It's constantly evolving, which is amazing too.
That's a brilliant opportunity to intertwine yourself and learn more about the universe and how to transform your consciousness into part of that collective, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's done in a safe way, and it's done where you understand the process, you marry the process, and you're conscious of it the whole way. And it's done at a pace where it's done properly, basically, because there's been a lot of stuff out there where it's trying to advance the spirit too quickly, and then it's left people feeling still in more despair because they haven't got their answers. So Spirit said that I have to teach it a certain way. So I'm in constant guidance with them as well. So I'm really just the conduit for it, which is great. So it's
It's got to be an amazing feeling. An amazing feeling. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
I know you got a book coming out too. So just briefly, when can we expect the book?
Well, the London Book Fair just finished last week. My literary agent, I've actually been talking to the last couple of days. There's a few publishers now looking at it, which is great. Obviously, COVID shut down everything, the book fairs and stuff, and it just all went a bit quiet, really. So everything's just starting to open up, especially here in England. So I'm in the process now of handing out the manuscript to publishers. So I should hear back, hopefully, however long it takes them to read it in the next few weeks. Yeah. So it's imminent.
Well, we will make sure that you have to let me know when that comes out so I can pop it on the website as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Paul, this is one more thing before you go. So do you have any words of wisdom before we leave?
Words of wisdom. Yes. Understand nothing can go against your will. You've created everything. Understand what magnetics means. This is a magnetic planet. So you have the power and sovereignty to take control of everything that's going on. There is nothing to fear. It's just a belief in fear. The shadow energy now that we fear so much, that we're taught to fear, is actually looking for us to release it. Fear is actually now said, I need to let go, because fear has had enough. Fear is conscious, like anger is conscious. You can actually talk to these emotions. So trust that you are in a space. If you're in a body right now, you're hearing this especially, you're ready for transformation. Everyone is, because you've been looking for this for lifetimes. So you just have to say, you know what, I've had enough. I've had enough of striving, struggling. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it's when you feel that, what I've just said, that creates the impetus for change. So I can 100% guarantee in the last few years, the energy on the planet is so supportive now. You just need to put up your hand and say, I need help. And it will manifest almost straight away. People will come to you that can help you. You'll be amazed what happens, but we have to put our hands up. So the words of wisdom, put your hand up, truly feel that you've had enough, say out to the universe, I want help, and it will come. Absolutely. Because Spirit are trying to help us. They're there. I guarantee it.
Brilliant words of wisdom. I think everybody should make sure you put your hand up and just ask. You just have to ask.
Yeah, you've got to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. It's a great saying.
Paul, thank you very much for joining us on One More Thing Before You Go. I really appreciate what you have to share with this world and what you're providing for us to be able to move forward in a very positive way. Thank you for sharing your journey and everything with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And thank you for creating the space. Wonderful.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go, a unique conversation about life. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. That's beforeyougopodcast.com. Tell your story, share your expertise, contribute to the blog, and subscribe to the newsletter. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.
And one more thing before you go. Have a nice day, have a nice week, and thanks for listening.
One More Thing Before You Go, a unique conversation about life podcast, is a creation of One More Thing Productions, established 2010, all rights reserved.